Do you know what effect hugging has on people?
Oh yeah,
it's amazing.
It's incredible.
It's a relief thing.
Yeah.
It's like a stress reliever.
Yeah.
Why? Because you feel good, and someone feels good about you, and you hug back, and you feel it's a win-win for everybody. That's what the give a damn philosophy is all about. It's a win-win for everybody. If everybody would just adopt this phrase, the world would be a whole lot better place.
Hey, I'm Armando LeDuc, producer, film actor, and owner of LeDuc Entertainment. I have chosen a life off the beaten path and wanted to find others that are doing the same. Spaghetti on the Wall is a show based on all of the years that I've thrown spaghetti on the wall and nurtured what stuck. We will share fun stories, ideas, tips, tricks, and more. Welcome to Spaghetti on the Wall.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening when you are listening to this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, back with another one. Mark Lewis is here today. How are you?
Terrific.
That's awesome. I love the upbeat positivity. I love that.
You know, it's funny when someone asked me that question. I was at the grocery store, and someone says, how are you? And I go, terrific. And they jump out of their seats, but they have a big smile on their face. And I say, well, people come up to me and say, how come you're always so terrific? And I just say, some days are just more terrific than others. That's the bottom line.
That's just the way it goes, and that's how you become successful.
Well, it works. Positivity is always a great mode to be successful.
So you wrote a book.
Yep. Right?
And you are an entrepreneur.
Yep.
So just kind of give me the backstory and the cliff notes and the highlights.
Well, I've been in technology all my life, and when I was with IBM for several years and I left and ran the Louisiana Technology Council, there was something in the environment that I couldn't understand, and that was how people were so selfish and self-serving. And so I started dictating everything that I saw. And then eventually you got about 3 years of data, and all of a sudden I said, well, I got all this data, I'm going to write a book, how to get to where we are today, and identified 9 areas that have gone in the environment that people are leaning and becoming more self-centered, selfish, and I wanted to see what I could do to change that.
And so how has that journey been so far?
You know, it's a tough journey. Being an author is not a money-making proposition, but my thought would be if I can do this over several years and make a difference in people's lives and understand what it means to give a damn, I think it's our ticket to cultural change. And by doing so, I've identified all these areas that you become happier, you live longer, and as a fact, when you're kind and you're serving and doing voluntary things to help other people. So when you do that, your body's stress goes down. Because you feel good. When you feel good about what you're doing, it lifts them up, but it also lifts you up. So everybody wins when you give a damn about somebody.
I love that. And so what are these 9 principles?
Well, I don't want to go through 2 of them, but you can certainly get it in my book. But, the big one is technology because we don't have that face-to-face communication like we had when I was growing up. When I worked for IBM, you didn't have cell phones then, so you had to go see people and you had to meet with them face-to-face. We're losing that connectivity. And by losing that connectivity, we don't have the same interaction that we had. And there's more interpretation about how the dialogue you use when you text somebody or when you send them an email. But you can get a much better feel about people and how they react and how they feel based on doing that face-to-face. So technology is a big one. We can communicate a lot more, but the quality of that communication has gone down. I think religion is taboo nowadays, and that's a big factor. Government's a big factor because they've more or less bred entitlement going forward. There's wealth as a factor. So all these factors are combined to put us in an area where we want to think more about ourselves than think about what we can do for other people. It's what's in it for me attitude that's become a problem.
Will it change?
It will, yes. It's hard to change people's habits like you and I. We have habits. It's hard to change those. But we have to focus on the kids because the kids are not getting the type of nurturing and character development that we got when we were younger from our mom and dad. So what we have to do is we've got to find a way where we can teach morals and character. My wife's a teacher. She says, we get this in school. I said, well, for some reason it's not getting out to people. And so what we need to do, my wife and I are actually putting together a series of books now to teach about what it means to be kind, respectful. It's called Camilla the Cuttlefish Makes a Splash. We're coming out with that book pretty soon, and it's my wife. She writes children's books. She's terrific at it. We're coming out, so we had to start at a very early age. Probably not in my lifetime, but if I can make a difference in people's lives over time and helping kids understand what it means to have morals and respect and kindness, they're going to prosper immensely more than if they didn't have that.
And so that leads me in a good segue into what part of the talking points today is how to use a hiring technique that you put in this book.
Yep.
So explain what this hiring technique is and how business owners can implement.
So I have a slogan: you hire for culture and you train for skill. Bottom line. And I teach that in my CEO roundtables, and I tell people why that's so important. When you create an excellent company culture, everybody works together. There's teamwork. So how do you find that right, what I call give a damn person, or how do you find that right person that you can hire that will fit into the culture? So I've developed a very unique, specialized interview technique that focuses specifically on that. So if I'm going to interview Armando, I'm going to say, I'm just going to tell you one or two prompts. I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. There's no right or wrong answer. What I'm trying to do is find out who you are and how you think and how you react to my questions by doing this face-to-face. And I can find somebody within 10 minutes. I can tell you right whether they're going to fit in the culture. Perfect. Couple of these, I have 90 plus of them in this ebook. And I'll say, okay, favorite color. Like, why would you want to know favorite color? Favorite car? If you won $100 million, what would you do? What do with it in the lottery? Favorite historical character. So all these answers come together and identify who you are and how you think. For instance, favorite color. You could say red or you could say blue. Blue is a soft color, red's a hard color. It says something about you. If $100 million in the lottery, say, well, I'd buy myself a car. I would buy myself this. For me, I would give half of it away or 90% of it away. If I want $100 million, I don't need $100 million to live. $10 million provides me a really good life. There are a lot of other people that need it more than I do. Favorite car, you could say a Maserati or you could say a Camry. So the combination, like 5 words that best describe you, all the combination of these answers tell me about you and whether you're going to fit in the culture. It's a fascinating way to do it. Nobody is doing it. The success has been phenomenal. They've been using it in my CEO roundtables for years, and they all just rave about how it works.
Well, talk to me about the CEO Roundtable.
Well, the CEO Roundtable is a state event put on by Louisiana Economic Development, and I've been fortunate to moderate it over the last 10 years. And basically brings together 15 to 18 CEOs on a monthly basis for the period of a whole year, and they get together for 4 hours. And we do interactions. So there's peer-to-peer networking, and then I have specific things that I make them do, like establish goals, mission and vision statement. We do things like lean organization, best practices in human resources. We actually do an interview in front of all these people. I interviewed somebody in the table and they were phenomenal, like, wow, that's like amazing. But when they adopt it, it's amazing. So the whole idea is to get people together, share best practices, allow me to teach them some things because I've been around in business for so long, things that could help with the accelerate the growth of their business. And LED has, for every dollar that they've spent in this, they've got an $8 return. So it's a great program. And guess what? It's free to CEOs who participate. Now, you have to be in business for at least 2 years. You've got to have at least $600,000 of revenue. And the application process is right now. So if you go to opportunitylouisiana.com, you can apply, and then we choose, because we don't want people who are in the same industry, because they could be competitors. We want to make sure that people have the ability to share their information with other people.
Is it like EO?
EO, yeah, it's similar to EO. EO is different in a way. It's an ongoing thing. There's a big cost, not a big cost, but there's a cost to participate. It's much larger than some other participation organizations like that. But yeah, it's a networking of entrepreneurs that get together. But this is specific to CEOs within various industries that get together. But EO is a great organization. I've participated for many, many years. I'm not in town as much now, so I can't participate as much as I used to, but I would recommend that highly.
So what's the difference between the CEO Roundtable and EO?
EO, the primary difference is their forum group. A forum is where 5 to 7 and maybe up to 9 EO representatives get together and talk specifically about things that they would never talk to anybody about because they just can't share that information. So you do a deep dive into the 5% that you wouldn't be able to talk about people specific to whether it's personal or business. That's the other big thing. Plus, EO puts on monthly events specifically for EO members and sometimes for their executives that are in their organization. So they do monthly events like that. There's a regional leadership conference that EO members can attend. So once you pay to be an EO, everything that you get is part of that EO consortium and getting together with other people.
And the CEO roundtable is?
Well, it starts in July, and it's basically we get together once a month for 10 months out of the year and focus on a particular topic, like best practices in human resources or lean organization or sales and marketing. So they all share their ideas. I give them some things. Sometimes we have guest speakers who are experts in their field, like Eric Morgan participated. You interviewed with him, talks about digital marketing and how people can benefit from that. So the whole idea is to help them focus on a specific area that they might need help with, and then they can implement one or two things that can help accelerate their growth.
And so you're a business consultant?
Yes.
Okay. So how long have you been doing that?
Oh, I would say all my life. But more specifically, after I left the Louisiana Technology Council, I wanted to go back in the entrepreneurial world, and I started my consultant firm. Actually, I went with another firm, and then I bought them out, and now I'm doing personal consulting. And basically what I do is help people identify some of the issues within their organization and then help put together strategies and plans, whether it's human resources or it's sales and marketing or AR collections or whatever needs to be done that can help benefit their organization to be more profitable. I have fun doing it. It's a blast.
So do they meet with you weekly, monthly?
It depends. Sometimes I meet with them weekly. Sometimes it depends on how many hours that they need. So it'll vary anywhere from 10 hours a month to maybe 50 hours a month, depending what that need is. And that cost will be dependent. What I charge for that will be dependent on how much they need my help.
Are you working on any systems in particular? Like, do you use EOS to help?
No, from my perspective, I don't use EOS. I'm a relatively small, I'm kind of a self-employed. I have other people that help me. If I need to contract them out, then they do that. But I specifically do things pertinent to what I need. I don't need EOS because I'm not that big a company to be able to do that. But I'm continuing to grow. So I have experts that come in and talk about, for instance, in April, I'll have an EOS expert come in. His name is Jude Ollinger, will come in and talk about EOS and how it can be beneficial to our organization. Look, I know a lot of stuff, but I'm not an expert in a lot of stuff either. So that's what makes a really good CEO, in my opinion. You need to know what you don't know, and then you bring in those people who are experts in your field that can help you with your organization development, and then that benefits everybody.
So why do you think businesses fail?
I think business fails for a couple reasons. One, the CEO doesn't have this, what I call empathetic attitude, or doesn't allow him to delegate the things that need to be done for other people to implement it. So, for instance, you want to have an expert in financial, but some CEOs might say, "Oh, I'm an expert. I don't need anybody like that." So they try to control everything in terms of not trying to develop a particular individual. So everybody in an organization wants to be part of a family. So what you want to do is have the tools in place to allow each individual to grow within that organization. Giving them responsibilities, let them do their job, and if they fail, then they learn from it. But let them continue to develop as an individual, because most people, I think, leave because they feel stagnant. They can't do things. The CEO is not empathetic. They don't understand. I think a good leader needs to be empathetic, has to have the tools that can provide the individuals and the employees to be successful, and let them do their job and give them everything they need to motivate them, to reward them, all the things that go in to making an organization successful.
And so talk to me about some growth strategies that you've seen or that you advise.
I'll go back to my human resource thing. The growth strategy is being able to go in and identify the individuals in the organization, what they're really good at, identify them, get feedback from them in terms of what they like and what they don't like. One of the best things that a company can do is what I call is the start, stop, keep routine. And what that entails is that you get all your employees together and you ask them, what do we need to start doing that we're not doing? What do we need to stop doing that's not beneficial to the organization? And what do we need to keep doing that we're doing really well? So everybody fills out this form, and they sit down and they talk about it. The whole team talks about it. And then you identify 1 or 2 or 3 things that everybody agrees to that we need to implement over the next 2 months. And the CEO goes ahead and implements those. And then you come back 6 months later and you say, okay, how are we doing? What do we need to do to be differently? And do another start, stop, keep, because things change pretty rapidly. That is a great team building exercises. Core values is another great team building exercise because a lot of companies don't have core values. So you ask, what do we need to be doing? What's our strategy? What are our core values? Teamwork, empathy, it could be trust, respect, and get everybody to detail that. Then you come back as a team and say, okay, we've got all these core values, list them on. We need to identify 6 or 7 that are really pertinent to our organization. And the whole team does that. You agree it, then you post it up. So these team building exercises are so important for business development and team development and company development. And people just feel good about that. They feel like they're part of a family. And that's what you want.
Start, stop, keep.
Keep. Yep.
Where'd you find this?
I found that in the book called Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. It's been upgraded by Vern Harnish to Scaling Up. I learned a lot from, and it's kind of like an EOS book, right? Traction's an EOS book. Employee operating systems. I learned that from that process. And I learned a lot about how to master meetings. One of the best things that companies need to do are what I call huddle calls. They meet every day, get on the phone, whether a conference port, and tell me, what are you doing that you doing today? What are we having roadblocks in? And then what are you going to do over the next couple weeks, whatever. So what happens is everybody understands what everybody else is doing, and then you do it every day. But everybody has only 15 to 30 seconds. So if you have 10 people, it takes 5 minutes. You don't want to go any longer than that. But now everybody knows what everybody else is doing, and it also creates accountability and responsibility as you're doing what you're supposed to do. So it eliminates people who may not want to work hard, because I remember one case where they implemented this huddle call, and the lady was doing some work, and she didn't want to be on the huddle call. And the CEO thought she was just she was so important to the group. But what ended up happening is she left because she didn't want to be participated. And the guy goes, "Oh my God, well I can't believe what happened." You know what he told me later on? 2 months later?
Best thing happened.
Absolutely
best
right.
thing.
You got it. It's the best thing that ever happened to the company. That's what you want. That's how you get the best people, the give a damn people that can contribute to the organization.
So start, keep. Yep. And then you're doing these morning huddles. We do these morning huddles to talk about, positive things, so they know people are just inundated with the negative.
Oh, I love that.
So,
we don't get that. Everything in today's world seems to be negative.
Yeah.
There's a new thing called that I subscribe to. It's called Nice News. It's a positivity. It makes you feel good.
Nice news.
When
I like it.
Yeah, when you hear things that are so negative, I think the biggest disease in today's world is not heart disease. It's not all this stuff, cancer. I think it's stress. Because stress leads to all these ailments.
Right.
When you feel good about yourself, your stress goes down and your body feels better and it doesn't fight itself. So I think stress is the main component of why people have the diseases they develop. It's not 100% true. I'd say there's always exception to every rule, and I tell people that all the time. But if you can do 90% versus the 10%, and I make this analogy all the time. I said, if a political person wins by 50.1%, 49.9%, the 49% don't complain. They accept it. But if there's special interest groups that mess it up for everybody, and when it's good for 90% and the other 10% get what they want, it screws everything up. So I make the analogy, man, if I can please 85% of the people, but the 15% I can't because whatever reason, I'm doing really good, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
Doing really well. So how long does it take to adopt that sort of habit structure for CEOs where they're like, okay, this is, we're in growth mode, we're scaling up. we're implementing these strategies? How long does it take?
Well, change is tough. And so if you're going to implement change, it takes a good maybe 1 to 2 years to implement a specific change. Now, some might be shorter than that. But to change an overall culture, and I have a client that it took about 1.5 to 2 years because he got rid of some people. And you know, I have a CEO roundtable this week, and I asked one of their exercises, I go, you have to make a decision you've been putting off for a long time. You're going to make that decision before you come to the roundtable and tell everybody what you did. And they don't want to do it. Most people don't like it because most of it has to do with firing somebody or doing something, it's family, whatever it may be.
Right.
And I make them do that. And that's the hardest thing for CEOs, to make really tough decisions. And those are the decisions that I make them make. And I say, okay, well, look, if you're going to blame anybody, blame me. Hire me and you can blame me. He made me do this and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, what happens? Everybody wins. The company starts thriving. And that's the biggest enjoyment I get when I go to a company client and I help see how they change and their corporation's getting better and they're making more money. Man, it's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, no, I love that for sure. So what do you see is sort of the future when it comes to technology? I know you guys have some AI software out there called Evolve Media, and we can talk about that too.
Yeah.
But where do you see sort of technology now that AI is getting faster and faster and faster?
Yeah, that scares me, to be honest with you, because there are a lot of bad people out there, and they're going to try to use that AI technology to cause a lot of disruption. I don't, that fear, that's a big fear in my book. But, AI can be very helpful in a lot of different ways. We just have to make sure we have to balance and get as much disruption in the bad guys trying to use AI to their benefit that can hurt other people. And how do you do that? It's a tough one for me, to be honest with you, because I'm scared to death about AI and there's a lot of good into it. Boy, the bad people get it, and it gets out there. It could be very disruptive to humankind overall. It just scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, I think, just in general, in history, when you look at everything, everything seems to balance itself out.
No doubt.
With,
I agree with you.
You have to have the bad in order to have the good. It's just,
That's so true.
It just has to be that, I think everybody gets scared about what it means. But I mean, when you see the different eras and in history and how things just changed when the printing press was invented and then, the Industrial Revolution and all of that. So I think we're in this state where there'll probably be a lot of disruption. People will lose their jobs. It'll be this sort of, I don't know what we're going to do, but I think humans are adaptable and they'll change with the times. And that Neuralink, they already put it in the guide. Did you see?
No, I didn't see that.
And he was able to control a mouse with his mind.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you bring that up because Steve Gleason, right? Right, and he's used technology tremendously to his advantage in helping other people with ALS to live a better quality life. And I was fortunate enough to get with Steve, and he wrote the opening foreword with my book. He is the true give a damn person, because when he talks about his disease, he says he's not confined by his wheelchair. He's liberated by it. He now knows that God put him on this earth to live a purposeful life, and that life is to help other people with ALS. And he's like, think about it. He had an unbelievable career, and he was all everything. And now, but to have that kind of attitude and positive attitude, it's phenomenal. And because he wrote the opening foreword in my book, I told him I'd give him 20%. Any speaking engagements I do, I give 20% back to his ALL Foundation. Anybody buys a book, I give 20% whatever I do to him because of what he's done and his true give a damn nature.
So tell me about the thing that spawned the book and why you felt the need to write it.
So that's funny because I get this question a lot, and I go, look, 10 years ago, if you told me I was going to write a book, I'd go, Armando, you're absolutely crazy. I don't like to write. I'm not an English guy, and that's just not in my DNA. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business guy. I'm not a big reader. I do read stuff, but there were situations in the environment I said, are you seriously? You do that? Are you doing this? And I saw it over and over and over again, and it pissed me off. So I said, well, how can I change this? because they're not thinking about anybody else. It's just internally driven. And I said, I got to start figuring this out. What can I do to help? And so I started dictating all that stuff. And like I said, I had all this data, and I said, I got to write a book. How can I change society in a way that can make people feel better about themselves, but also feel and do good things for other people? And I write this, most people give a damn when it's internal to them, but when they get outside their own domain, they don't think about it. Here's a perfect example. Walking across the street to my office, I kicked this rusty nail. Most people wouldn't pick that rusty nail up if it's in the middle of the highway. But if it was in the middle of your driveway, what would you do?
Pick it up.
You pick it up. Why?
Because it affects you.
Yeah,
right.
It doesn't affect you. So my thought was, I kicked that rusty nail. I said, well, maybe some lady had a kid in the back of their van, and they got on their tire, and they went down and had a blowout. I didn't want that to happen. If it was my child, I wouldn't want that to happen. So I figured out, wouldn't want it to happen to my kid, so why should it happen to anybody else?
Right.
And so that's the thing. That's the internal thinking that we need to do, and get outside our own internal domain and start thinking externally and what effect our actions and words may have on other people. And that's important. The Will Smith case, Cardell Hayes.
Yeah.
And, that was ego-driven. One had to be better than it, and it kept escalating. And the next thing you know, he hits him. The guy comes out with a gun. If you just said, hey, let's talk about this. Let's not cause any grief between. Let's just resolve this. But someone had to win, and guess what? Will Smith lost his life, and so that's what we have to get away. We can't think that we're better than all the time. We got to step back and view life about how we're acting towards other people, what effect, and whether it's right or not.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was talking to somebody. I just got back from a trip in Puerto Rico, and this lady had gone to Japan and was there for like months. And the culture over there is really about everybody else,
sure.
Right? Like you go to the movie theater, you pick up after yourself. She said, as a matter of fact, there are no trash cans anywhere. Like you keep your trash and you throw it away when you get home, which is wild. So it's like none of the streets, the streets are clean. Awesome. Everything's clean. I mean, even after the World Cup,
yes.
the Japanese would clean up the stadium
yes.
after themselves. It was like mind blowing.
That's an amazing culture, and those are the kind of stories that nobody hears about.
Yeah.
And we got to get people to understand. Now, I don't know what the average life of a Japanese person is versus an American person. I got to believe it's longer, but
I think they live long.
They do live longer. Why? Because they have this internal feel good about who they are, what they do, and what their effect that they have on other people. It's amazing how it works.
External for sure. Like I think, a lot of Americans are internally driven. I was just, the 5 love languages. Are you familiar?
Yeah. I can't remember what they are, but
it's touch, words of affirmation, acts of service.
Oh, okay.
Gift giving and quality time, right?
Yep.
And the 4 besides touch are not a lot easier, right?
Sure.
But like I think that here in the United States we're so starved for like physical touch,
no doubt,
that it's just like it's so crazy that like hugging somebody,
Do you know what effect hugging has on people?
Oh yeah,
it's amazing.
It's incredible.
It's a relief thing.
Yeah.
It's like a stress reliever.
Yeah.
Why? Because you feel good, and someone feels good about you, and you hug back, and you feel it's a win-win for everybody. That's what the give a damn philosophy is all about. It's a win-win for everybody. If everybody would just adopt this phrase, the world would be a whole lot better place.
Yeah, I don't know how you. In our culture, I mean, it's just so difficult,
no doubt,
to like really change that. I mean, the Southern, just being here in the South, not from the South, but I've been here over 20 plus years. So, it's ingrained, but like, it's a lot more warm than you would find in like, some of the northern states. Right. Yeah. It's just like real, it's real cold.
I'll tell you an interesting story. When I came down here from Louisiana in 1979, I went to Tulane. I went for work for IBM. And my first territory was in Houma, Thibodeau. And so, I had somewhat of an accent, but I grew up in Rochester, not New York, right? But I had an accent. So go down to Thibodeau and they ask you, well, where are you from? I go, New Orleans, because I want to tell them New York, right? And they go, no, you're not. I said, well, I'm from Rochester, New York. Ooh, man, the reaction total change. You know why? Because they think New York is New York State. Anytime you think New York State.
Yeah.
So how do I fix this? Right? So I go on another appointment and go, where are you from? I go, New Orleans. No, you're not. I said, where are you from? Rochester. Well, where's that? Well, it's near Buffalo. Well, I don't know where, Niagara Falls. Oh, that's a cool place. And I was okay then. But the stigmatism of New York City, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true too.
I really don't know how you're going to change the culture. I guess you can just change with the people, your family, and then the people that you can affect, sort of in this smaller area.
Yeah, the way to really change and have a dramatic effect is with the kids.
Yeah.
We have to teach them about character, morals, respect. Yes, sir. No, ma'am. Thank you. Excuse me, please. You don't see that much anymore. And how do we get that message to them? Because I don't think they're not getting it like we used to get it when we were younger. And
we also got smacked around, and that wasn't good. You know what I mean? So it's like the good and the bad, right? You gotta, like, some things are like, there was, teachings that were from like an old culture that people are still dealing with traumatically now, right? And it's just, so you have to, like, the balance between, what was good to teach, and like how are people better or not, having lived through that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I definitely grew up in a household where I got smacked around.
Discipline.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was. It could be good. It could not be good. I mean, I don't know.
We've gotten too soft, actually. It's called tough love. My dad was tough love, and you got to pay the consequences for what you do. And those consequences, we just let them go. It was just a mistake. We can't learn. We got to have those tough consequences.
But you think it's the tough? But you think it's?
I don't think it's
smacking
about
around?
abusing people,
right?
But to slap, to spank somebody, it's not like you're hurting them. They're it's not to go to the hospital. It's a discipline. You can't do that now.
But I'm saying so that, and you bring up a good point, right? Do you believe that hitting a kid, right, or smacking them will allow them to will get them to act in a better way? You know what I mean? Or does that, like, you smack them and then they learn that behavior and then they go smack other people?
I don't believe in smacking. Basically, I believe in consequences.
Sure.
And those consequences can be extreme, like smacking, or to a level where they get the point. And the point is, hey, you did something wrong, you're going to pay the consequences. We don't provide those level of consequences. When we were growing up, we got smacked. We understood that. It was okay. We learned.
Sure.
But maybe smacking's not so good today's, but find what's the right level of discipline where they understand that the consequences, they're going to suffer the consequences for what they do. And you got to set those up front, too.
Sure.
By doing that and carrying through on those consequences, because a lot of people don't, that's where the discipline comes into play, and that's where people learn.
And look, we can't fix the world's problems today.
Right.
But we can sure try. I'm reading a lot of psychology books. I've got a 4-year-old, right? So I'm like, how do I prevent, someone growing up that goes in a,
I will tell you.
Go ahead,
and
please.
I learned this from Brian Tracy.
Uh-huh.
Brian Tracy said to his children, which I wish I had done because all my children were grown, if you always tell the truth, you will never get in trouble. Think about that. If you always tell the truth, you will never get in trouble. Now, you might pay the consequences, but at the minute you lie, all bets are off.
Right. I like that idea.
Yeah, and it was profound to me. I wish I had learned that when I was my kids growing up. But
do you prevent? Can you really? They lie.
They lie because they don't want to get in trouble.
Because they don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, and they feel embarrassed.
And they feel embarrassed, right?
Exactly.
Or they don't. They're going through growing up. They don't really understand what's happening sometimes. And they're like just
Yeah, but getting that message to them of always
Oh,
telling
totally.
the truth
100%.
and suffering the consequences for doing will allow them to do the right thing, even though they think in their mind, oh, I can get away with it. You know, most people do the wrong thing because they can justify it in their mind as being right. Now think about that. For instance,
True.
Oh, I'm out on the ball field. I'm going to throw this trash in the trash can, and I miss it. Someone else will pick it up. The right thing is to go back and pick it up and put it in the
Right.
trash can. If you had thrown that trash and you missed your wastebasket in your house, what would you do? You'd pick it up and you throw it away.
Yeah.
Right? Same like garbage. Throw
Or I
it
let
out-
my wife do it. I'm just kidding. I don't do it. I got
I
kidding.
know. I get it. It's a joke. I know.
Sure.
But same thing when you're driving down the highway. People throw garbage out.
Yeah, I hate that.
Oh, that gets
Yeah,
me so
yeah,
riled up.
yeah.
But would you throw that garbage out in the middle of your living room and leave it there? No.
You know, some people would.
Yeah, well,
Some people do.
Yeah, well, that's the exception.
No, that is definitely the
So
exception.
there's always exceptions because you can't be 100% true in
Sure.
everything you do. But if 95% would probably not do it,
Right.
that's what we got to think. We got to stay within that realm
Yeah,
of
yeah.
thinking.
You definitely do.
That's the hardest thing for people to do.
Right, because they're yeah,
Because
you
they
can
don't
always
know.
justify
Exactly.
You can always justify
So,
actions.
you know, I wear this wristband, the give a damn around my wristband around my wrist because sometimes I got to continue to be reminded. Now I'm a whole lot better than I was 10 years ago
Sure.
because it means so much to me, and I'm trying to get that message to everybody.
But I think that happens as we get older.
It does. You're right.
Because in your 20s, you just don't really care.
That's why we got to teach kids at a very.
But
early
can
age.
you?
I think you can.
Sure. I mean, I think you can. I think you can tell them. But I also think that kids are going to go through a journey where they're going to hit the wall and they're going to hit it hard.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And here's the deal is like when you leave the nest, that's when you really start to feel the consequences of your actions, you know?
That's where a parent, though, is very, very supportive. If you have that relationship with
Mm-hmm.
your child and they can tell you the truth and they can rely and talk to you about things that maybe they may not be able to talk to other people about or a special friend, you need that nurturing. I mean, having that nurturing and having someone come in, it's very, very difficult to talk to somebody about if you can have that nurturing relationship. I always got accused of because I wanted to be friends with my kids, right?
Sure.
Well, you can't be friends or you have to be a parent. I said, there's a balance between both.
Sure.
And so by having that balance, and they can come to you, you see these relationships all the time. And I think that's where we have to get to. The more we can do that, the better off our society is going to be.
Yeah, I agree. It was so funny. I saw this video the other day of a jar full of mosquitoes, right? Or not mosquitoes, fleas. And they could jump out of the jar, right? But they put the cap on, right? And they left it there for, I don't know, like, you know, a few hours, days or whatever. Then they undid it, and all of the fleas jumped within the jar. They never jumped out, right? They never jumped out. Even the kids that they had now understood that there was a ceiling, right? And so I think that sometimes people, when they're growing up in households that like sort of have this sort of limiting beliefs, and look, I grew up in that household of just like you got to go to school because that's what everybody else does. And then you do this. And like, I graduated from high school with like a 2.3, right? GPA, not because I was dumb, but just cause like school was not for me, you know? And then I went to college and I was like, this is definitely not for me. Right. And then, you know, I sort of paved my own way and I did things like my own way, you know, got lost a lot, trial and error a lot, failed a lot, you know what I mean? But I think as a result of that, I'm definitely further along than I would have ever been going through some sort of assembly line according to what people think I should be doing.
But what kind of support did you get by going through that whole process?
What kind of support did I get?
Yeah.
From my family?
From anybody. School, family, friends. I mean, you turned out
I had
great.
I had mentors throughout the process, for sure. I definitely had mentors that, you know, that were like, hey, you know, at the time it was the thing I needed, you know. I also think that it's divine intervention.
I agree with you.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it's you know, God, universe, Allah, whoever, you know, you believe in. I think that the external forces.
Do you know that people, and they did a survey at Ohio State University, people who believe in God or some higher power actually live 4 years longer than people who don't. Is that amazing? Why is that the case? Well, God is, quote, your mentor. It's a feel-good. I have a release.
Yeah.
The release is a stress release when you think about it. And now I just feel better overall. When you feel better overall, you live longer. It's just a fact. And they measured it. Ohio State measured it because it's a stress relief mentor, quote unquote. And if you have those in your life, which you did,
I did,
is helpful
yeah.
to get and go through life. And that's why we have to have that nurturing amongst people that can be helpful. And again, my book is designed to help you feel better and to release that stress.
Can you learn though? Mentors taught me and nurtured relationships, but the best lessons I ever had in life were the ones where I failed and like got my head knocked.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like those were the best lessons. So even if, I think maybe the mentors are there to like give you guidance, and sort of be there when you fall, because I think that those are like the best lessons.
So people's attitude when you fail is that's an experience. You look at it as a positive versus a negative. Oh my God, what am I going to do? It's like, you know why people worry?
Why?
Because they don't take action.
Right.
That's why they worry. And the more you worry, the less action you take. So if the failures were meant to be a positive influence and you say, this is something that I'm learning. And again, I look at everything in a positive way.
Sure.
If I do something and I fail, it's a lesson that I'm learning. God has told me that you got to learn this lesson before you move on or whatever.
Sure.
Or it could be a mentor so you can be better at it the next time around. Because we all go through this experience. Everybody, I've been through a lot of them, especially with my family, and I learned. And I wish I had done things differently and bringing up my family and my kids, And so those are the kind of things that we need to just continue to look at us individually and say, this is a lesson. I'm learning from this lesson. This is how I'm going to be better. And that works. And it just relieves your stress. And they say, what am I going to do about it? Okay, I'm going to take this, 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 and this. And so therefore, you don't worry because you're taking action to get things done. And you can't worry by taking action.
There you go, because you're doing it.
Exactly.
So we just solved the problem. We said we weren't going to do it, but we did. We just did it. We solved the world's problem just now.
Now they get the message out to everybody.
There you go.
That's the hard
it.
part.
That's why we've got it. That's why we recorded it.
Exactly.
Mark, thanks so much. Why don't you look into this camera right here and let them know where they can find you.
Hey, you can find me. I got my website at marklewisllc.com. You can learn all about Give a Damn. You can learn about my Hire for Culture, Train for Skill. There's a lot of things that I'm doing at that website, or you can certainly email me at mlewis@marklewisllc.com. Thanks, Armando. You've been terrific.
Mark,
this is a lot of fun.
I love
really doing
fun.
These kind of things.
Love Spaghetti on the Wall. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Spaghetti on the Wall, brought to you by Leduc Entertainment. For all of your digital marketing needs, podcasts, social media, we got you. And you can watch Spaghetti on the Wall anywhere you're probably listening to it right now. And we'll see y'all next week.